Health. We're grateful for it. We monitor it. We even toast to it. As a mother of two healthy teenage boys, it's something I took for granted. My younger son, Troy, was 15 years old and an athlete. He started running on fields as a young boy, playing flag football, sun in his hair, smile on his face, and then advanced to enjoy not only football, but also baseball in high school. He was fit, happy, and energetic, doing well in his life, not only in his studies, but as a leader among his friends. Then he started to not feel well. His energy was lower than normal. He'd come home from practice and sit on the couch, not wanting to move. What he didn't tell me was that he was also getting winded at practice and often had to sit down. He didn't want to worry me. He figured it was just a bug. Time went by and he didn't feel better. He would rally through, but then started getting low fevers. And when he noticed swollen lymph nodes under his arm and itty-bitty bruises on his legs, he finally asked me to take him to the doctor. I mean, what kid wants to go to the doctor? But he asked me. Even though it was odd for Troy to want to see a doctor, I wasn't exactly alarmed. I thought it could possibly be mono, or at worst, he might be a little anemic. Both Troy and his brother had been strong, healthy boys. I made an appointment with the pediatrician, and Troy's dad took him to the visit, and we all thought it was going to be okay, that he would be fine. A few days went by, and after the doctor visit, the phone finally rang. And to this day, I can still remember exactly where I was and what I was doing when I answered the doctor's call to hear the results of Troy's blood work. We're pretty sure Troy has leukemia. Let that sit with you for a minute. And the room got smaller. And I stared at the phone in my hand, and the pediatrician was just talking and talking. And I had a friend from my women's group over, and she was talking and talking. Man, I couldn't understand anything she was saying, and her words were just words. And we were arranging flowers, I remember that, for a fundraiser. And I couldn't breathe. Now I can breathe. It was like having an out-of-body experience. Suddenly, nothing at all made sense. And when I calmed down, I was being told to bring Troy to Children's Hospital that night, but it wasn't an emergency. Again, time was not making sense to me, and I felt weird. I was going through the motions of listening, trying to grasp at what the doctor was telling me to do. And Troy was on his way home from school with his brother, and it wasn't an emergency, right? It was just strange. Well, it certainly felt like an emergency. Tonight. It felt like an emergency tonight, not tomorrow, right? Hang up and pack a bag. It's not an emergency. It's not an emergency. Go pack a bag. And I kept repeating it over and over to myself, trying to find some calm in the rhythm of the words. Just pack your bag. When Troy walked in, his dad and I told him together. None of us knew what to expect. We were scared, but the sense of urgency only gave us time, only just time to cry just for a moment. Troy needed blood and platelets right when he was admitted to the hospital, as soon as he was diagnosed. And neither Troy nor I ever really thought about platelets, and suddenly we were getting a crash course in why they are so important. They are essential to surviving and fighting cancer. And I always imagined people who received blood as being, emergency room patients, gunshot or car accident victims, and I didn't realize the need for blood right then to fight disease. But every 15 seconds, you guys, somebody needs platelets. They are in constant demand by hospitals. They also must be used within 5 days, so new donors are constantly needed. I just donated a couple weeks ago. Platelet donors are different than blood donors. It takes 2 hours to donate platelets. Precious time out of a donor's day, but ever so important. And we began to think of blood in our family and platelets as liquid gold. Troy needed a lot of both, and there was one time when Troy was receiving chemotherapy and he needed platelets, And the nurse said there was a shortage, and a half an hour passed, and it still didn't arrive, and Troy got paler and paler. He feared he wouldn't survive. And I was trying to stay strong as my little boy's face was staring up at me, but also impatient as hell to when the platelets would arrive. Please get them here already. My boy needs them.
Definitely, probably one of the hardest things I've ever been through is finding out that I was diagnosed with cancer. When we got the call from the doctor, it felt like it was a mistake. You know, the stuff happens, people make mistakes, and, a lot of people think that doctors are great, but everyone does. They aren't above it. I just felt like this couldn't be happening. I didn't feel sick. At least not at first. Then people started saying things like leukemia. It's a nasty word. Is it cancer? Why use two different words? And nobody feels good hearing the word chemotherapy. I mean, you break it down, it's chemicals and therapy. How can that be good for someone? And it was brutally hard for my family. My mom especially. I remember that she would always pretend that it was fine when really I felt like she was the one that was the most scared. It was awful seeing her like that, and when I took her hand and promised it would be all right, it seemed like sometimes it just made it worse. Hospitals don't feel good. They're big and loud when you want them to be quiet and silent when you want just some sort of noise, and the clinics are just as bad. The TV's always on the wrong channel, and you think it's going to be cool like the movies, and you get there, and it's just not. And
no Jello.
Yeah, no Jello. The tubes hurt. It's always too cold or too hot, and the blankets itch. Everything takes forever. Seriously, everything takes forever. And things started to get bad quickly. 1 minute I was on the field, and the next I was in the hospital, and I never left. At one point, I developed mucositis, which is incredibly painful, and I had sores that went from my lip all the way down to my digestive tract, and I had a morphine drip. I lost so much weight. I had to have someone help me go to the bathroom because I just couldn't lift myself up. And I remember just looking in the mirror and not recognizing myself. I was pale and lifeless, and the only thing I would help was blood and platelets, and they were so important. The donors really are doing a selfless act, and the commitment they have, the sacrifice that they take, it's not only of their time, but of their body. It's something that I will always be grateful for. I remember one time we were waiting for blood, and it just seemed like it was never going to come. I started to wonder if I was going to get well, or what if I didn't, and I knew that some people just didn't leave the hospital. Somewhere outside there were kids playing baseball, basketball, football, hell, sports that I didn't even like, but they had the choice. I didn't. They were laughing and running, and I remember I made a promise to myself that if I get out, I will remember and be grateful for everything that I can be. It's been over 2 years now. I still go on checkups, and I probably always will, but I'm grateful for the life that I have and all the people who helped me get healthy.
Today, Troy is happy and healthy. We are eternally grateful to the Red Cross and all the donors who take the time to give blood and platelets. The Red Cross set up numerous blood drives after hearing Troy's story. The first 2 drives resulted in 70 blood donations that saved 23 lives. Blood donors really do save lives every single day. Thank you.